Most people think of sleep as the thing that happens once you finally crawl into bed and shut your eyes. But neuroscience tells us something very different. Your ability to fall asleep quickly and get deep, restorative rest actually begins hours before your head ever touches the pillow. In other words, sleep is not just what happens at night, it's the direct result of what you do in the hours leading up to it. Why does this matter? Because sleep is not just rest, it's the single most powerful reset button we have for our brain and body. During quality sleep, the brain clears out toxins through the lymphatic system, strengthens memory through hippocampal replay, and recalibrates emotional circuits in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, which is why even one bad night can leave you more irritable, less focused, and more likely to make poor decisions. In fact, studies from the National Institutes of Health have shown that consistent sleep deprivation impairs the brain in ways similar to being legally intoxicated. That's how powerful it is, and yet nearly 1 in 3 adults struggles with insomnia or poor sleep quality. Maybe you've experienced this. You lie in bed, mind racing, body restless, checking the clock and getting more stressed as the minutes pass. The harder you try to force sleep, the further away it feels. The good news is, this is not a mystery of willpower, it's biology. And once you understand how to work with your brain and body, you can fall asleep faster and wake up feeling genuinely restored. In this episode, we're going to break down a healthy night routine backed by neuroscience and psychology that helps you transition from a busy day into deep restorative sleep. We'll explore 6 powerful levers: how light exposure shapes your circadian rhythm, how body temperature cues sleep onset, the role of nutrition and timing, the psychology of winding down, breathing, and relaxation tools that shift your nervous system, and the often overlooked behavioral triggers that make or break your night. By the end, you'll not only know why your brain struggles or succeeds at falling asleep, you'll also have a set of simple science-based tools you can use tonight. Why evening light exposure delays melatonin release and disrupts your biological night. How dimming lights and avoiding screens at the right time primes your brain for sleep. The science of thermoregulation, why your body must cool down to initiate sleep. Practical tools: warm shower or bath before bed, cool bedroom environment, breathable bedding. How late night eating, caffeine, and alcohol alter sleep architecture. The role of timing meals to support circadian rhythm stability. The importance of transitioning the brain from problem-solving mode into rest mode. Tools: journaling, closing loops, reading, or setting aside a daily reflection ritual. How stress keeps the sympathetic nervous system overactive at night. Simple breathwork protocols to activate the parasympathetic system and calm the body. Why going to bed and waking up at consistent times strengthens circadian rhythm. How environmental and habitual cues train the brain to expect sleep at the right time. One of the most powerful and most overlooked levers for sleep is light. We often think of sleep as something internal, but the truth is your brain is constantly taking cues from the external world to decide whether it's time to be alert or time to wind down. And the strongest signal of all is light. Here's what the research shows. Inside your eyes, even apart from vision, are specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells don't care much about shapes or color, they care about brightness, especially blue wavelengths of light. They send a direct signal to a tiny structure deep in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is essentially your circadian clock. When light fades, the brain gradually increases the release of melatonin, which cues the body for sleep. Now here's the problem. In the modern world, we flood our evenings with artificial light. Overhead LEDs, televisions, and especially phone and laptop screens all emit the very wavelengths that keep those retinal cells firing. One fascinating study from Harvard showed that exposure to blue light before bed delayed melatonin release by about 90 minutes. Imagine trying to fall asleep while your brain is still being told it's midday. That's exactly what's happening when you scroll late at night. Think about your own routine. Have you noticed that nights when you're on your phone in bed, you not only fall asleep later, but also wake up feeling less rested, even if you technically got enough hours? That's not just in your head, it's your circadian clock being shifted out of sync. A simple tool to apply is this: begin dimming your lights about an hour before bed. If possible, use warmer, softer lighting lamps instead of ceiling lights. And consider reducing screen exposure, or at the very least using blue light filters. Another powerful tool is stepping outside briefly in the evening, allowing your eyes to register the natural dimming of the sky. Your circadian system evolved for millions of years with the rising and setting of the sun. When you give it those cues, your brain understands night is coming, it's safe to wind down. Interestingly, the story of light doesn't just begin at night. Your sleep tonight actually starts with the light you get in the morning. Research from Stanford and other universities has shown that getting sunlight into your eyes within the first hour of waking dramatically improves sleep quality later that night. Why? Because early light exposure anchors your circadian rhythm, telling your internal clock, this is morning, start the countdown to tonight's melatonin release. So here's the framework. Morning sunlight sets the clock, evening darkness winds it down. If you align those two anchors, your body knows exactly when to be alert and when to sleep. If you miss them, your brain drifts, which is why many people feel wired but tired at night and groggy in the morning. About 1 to 2 hours before your planned bedtime, dim overhead lights. Use warmer lamps if possible. In the last 30 to 60 minutes, reduce screen use or wear blue light blocking glasses if you absolutely must use devices. Finally, let your environment do some of the work. Make your bedroom as dark as possible. Blackout curtains or even a sleep mask can make a measurable difference. When you do this consistently, you're no longer fighting biology, you're working with it. And that shift aligning light exposure with your circadian rhythm is one of the fastest ways to fall asleep more easily and wake up feeling genuinely restored. Most people don't realize that one of the strongest signals your body uses to initiate sleep is not just light, but temperature. In fact, research from Harvard and the University of Southern California shows that a subtle drop in core body temperature is one of the key triggers that tells your brain it's time to transition into sleep. Here's what's happening. Throughout the day, your core body temperature naturally fluctuates, peaking in the late afternoon or early evening, and then gradually dropping as bedtime approaches. But here's the interesting paradox. The best way to help your body cool down for sleep is often to warm it up first. Studies have shown that taking a warm shower or bath about an hour before bed actually speeds up sleep onset. Have you noticed how you feel pleasantly drowsy after a hot shower at night? That's not just comfort, it's biology doing its job. Another key factor is your sleep environment. Ideally, your bedroom should be slightly cool. Most sleep researchers suggest somewhere between 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, though it varies by individual. Too warm, and your body struggles to drop its core temperature. Too cold, and you might wake up shivering or restless. The sweet spot is just cool enough that you want a light blanket for comfort. Bedding and clothing also matter. Breathable fabrics like cotton, linen, or moisture-wicking materials help regulate heat. Heavy, synthetic fabrics can trap warmth and disrupt the natural cooling process. Some people even find weighted blankets helpful, not because of temperature regulation, but because the gentle pressure can calm the nervous system. The key is balancing comfort with thermoregulation. Here's a simple tool you can use tonight. About an hour before bed, take a warm shower lasting 5 to 10 minutes. Afterward, let your body air cool naturally while you prepare for sleep. Pair that with a bedroom kept on the cooler side and lightweight, breathable bedding. This combination primes your physiology for the sleep switch to flip. It's also worth paying attention to your extremities. Cold hands and feet can make it harder to fall asleep, because when blood flow is restricted there, your body has a harder time shedding heat. Wearing light socks or using a warm water bottle at your feet can actually help you fall asleep faster by supporting circulation and heat loss. Again, it's counterintuitive. Warming your feet helps your core body temperature drop. What's happening in your brain when this occurs is fascinating. As your body cools your hypothalamus, the brain's thermostat signals to the pineal gland that it's safe to release more melatonin. Too many people unknowingly fight at sleeping in overheated rooms using heavy blankets or working out intensely right before bed, which raises core temperature for hours. If you're finding this helpful, I'd invite you to subscribe to the channel. Each week we break down science-backed tools like the small adjustments that make a big impact on how you sleep, focus, and feel in daily life. So tonight, think of your routine as giving your body permission to cool down. That cooling is not just comfort, it's the biological switch that opens the door to sleep. When people struggle with falling asleep, they often blame stress, screens, or even genetics. But one of the most overlooked culprits is nutrition, not just what you eat, but when you eat it. The relationship between food and sleep is more direct than most of us realize. Here's what the research shows. Digestion and circadian rhythm are tightly linked. Every cell in your body runs on a roughly 24-hour clock, and that includes the cells in your gut and liver. Late-night eating can confuse those clocks, keeping metabolic systems active when they should be winding down. Studies published in journals like Cell Metabolism have demonstrated that eating large meals late at night disrupts both sleep quality and glucose regulation the next day. Think about how you feel after a heavy dinner eaten just before bed. You may feel drowsy at first, but instead of sinking into deep restorative sleep, you're more likely to wake up during the night or feel sluggish in the morning. That's because your body is still prioritizing digestion instead of fully engaging in the repair processes that sleep is designed for. Caffeine is another big player. Most people know it keeps you awake, but what's less known is its half-life. Caffeine lingers in the body for about 5 to 6 hours, and in some people even longer, depending on genetics and liver metabolism. That means a cup of coffee at 4 p.m. can still be affecting your brain's adenosine receptors at 10 p.m. Adenosine is the chemical that builds up pressure for sleep throughout the day. Caffeine works by blocking those receptors, which is why your body may feel tired but wired at night. The adenosine is there, but caffeine is blocking the signal. So here's a simple framework. If sleep is a priority, try to avoid caffeine at least 8 to 10 hours before your intended bedtime. For most people, that means switching to decaf or herbal tea by mid-afternoon. Alcohol is trickier, because it feels like it helps sleep.
A glass of wine or whiskey may make you drowsy and shorten the time it takes to fall asleep. But here's what's happening in your brain. Alcohol fragments sleep architecture. Specifically, it reduces REM sleep, the stage critical for memory consolidation, emotional processing, and creativity. Studies from the University of Melbourne and others show that even modest amounts of alcohol disrupt REM and cause micro-awakenings throughout the night, often without you remembering them. The result? You wake up less restored, even if you slept for 8 hours. If you do drink, a useful rule is to finish your last drink at least 3 to 4 hours before bed, allowing your body to metabolize most of the alcohol before you try to sleep. There's also an interesting link between certain nutrients and sleep onset. Magnesium, found in foods like leafy greens, nuts and seeds, supports relaxation by influencing. These aren't magic bullets, but diets that include them regularly can support more consistent sleep quality. Let's turn this into a simple nighttime protocol. Aim to finish your last substantial meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. If you need something later, keep it small and light, like a piece of fruit or yogurt. Cut off caffeine intake at least 8 hours before bedtime. Earlier is even better if you're particularly sensitive. If consuming alcohol, finish at least 3 to 4 hours before sleep, and balance it with water. Throughout the day, prioritize whole foods rich in magnesium, tryptophan, and other sleep-supportive nutrients. Have you noticed how much clearer your mind feels after a night of uninterrupted sleep compared to one with late-night food or drinks? The difference is profound, because your brain and body are finally allowed to fully shift into repair mode, instead of juggling digestion or detox. So remember, nutrition is not just about fueling the day, it's also about setting the stage for the night. By aligning what and when you eat with your circadian rhythm, you remove another barrier between you and deep restorative sleep. Have you ever noticed that you can be completely exhausted, yet the moment your head hits the pillow, your mind lights up? Suddenly you're replaying the day, planning tomorrow, or worrying about things you can't control at midnight. This is one of the most common barriers to sleep, not the body being restless, but the mind refusing to let go. Here's what the research shows. The brain doesn't have an off switch. It transitions through states. During the day, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for problem solving and decision making, is highly active. At night, your brain needs to downshift into a more reflective, less analytical state before it can enter the sleep stages smoothly. If you go straight from emails, planning, or Netflix into bed, you're essentially slamming the brakes at full speed. The nervous system is still in go mode. Psychologists often refer to this as cognitive arousal, the state of mental busyness that delays sleep onset. One study published in Behavior Research and Therapy found that people with insomnia consistently reported higher levels of pre-sleep worry, regardless of physical tiredness. It's not that they couldn't sleep, it's that their brains wouldn't stop rehearsing. The solution isn't to force sleep that usually backfires, but to create a deliberate wind-down ritual. Think of it as a psychological runway that allows your mind to land smoothly. Just as athletes use rituals to transition into peak performance, you can use rituals to transition into rest. One powerful tool is journaling. Research from Baylor University showed that writing down unfinished tasks before bed significantly improves sleep onset, because it reduced what psychologists call open loops. By externalizing those thoughts onto paper, you send a signal to your brain: I don't need to hold this in working memory anymore, it's safe to let go. Even 5 minutes of writing a simple to-do list can reduce mental clutter. Another approach is reflection, or gratitude journaling. Instead of cycling through worries, you redirect attention to what went well, what you're grateful for, or one positive memory from the day. This doesn't just calm the mind, it also shifts emotional state, making it easier for the nervous system to settle. Reading is another effective ritual, especially fiction, or something light. Unlike scrolling a phone, which bombards the brain with novelty and light, reading provides a single linear stream of focus. It gently occupies the mind while reducing external stimulation, creating a bridge from the busyness of the day to the quiet of sleep. Breathing practices, which we'll explore more deeply in the next section, can also be integrated here. Even a few minutes of slow, intentional breathing while lying in bed signals the parasympathetic nervous system to take over. This is the rest and digest mode that naturally precedes sleep. Here's a simple framework you can try tonight. About 30 to 60 minutes before bed, put away stimulating work and screens. Choose a calming ritual: journaling, reading, light stretching, or even listening to calming music. If worries come up, jot them down on paper instead of cycling them in your head. Treat this period as a buffer zone, where the goal is not to fall asleep immediately, but to shift state. Have you noticed how children thrive when they have bedtime routines? Bath, story, lights out. Their nervous systems expect sleep, so resistance fades. Adults are no different. The difference is that we often abandon rituals just when we need them most. By reintroducing a simple wind-down ritual, you teach your brain to expect rest at a certain time, reducing the friction between exhaustion and actual sleep. And here's the empowering part. This isn't just about sleep. When you master the skill of transitioning out of overthinking at night, you're also training emotional regulation during the day. You're practicing letting go, setting boundaries with your mind, and reclaiming agency over your attention. So remember, falling asleep isn't about shutting down suddenly. It's about guiding your mind through a gentle descent, and the tools you use in that final hour are the difference between lying awake frustrated and drifting off with ease. Even if your room is dark, cool, and quiet, even if you've eaten at the right time and dimmed the lights, sleep can still feel elusive if your nervous system is stuck in high gear. Stress, overthinking, even just rushing through a busy day can leave your body locked in what's called a sympathetic state, the fight or flight mode. And here's the key: you cannot fall asleep while your body believes it's in danger, even if that danger is just an unfinished email or tomorrow's meeting. What's happening in your brain is simple but profound. The autonomic nervous system has two branches: the sympathetic, which primes you for action, and the parasympathetic, which supports rest and recovery. Sleep requires a shift toward parasympathetic dominance. One of the fastest ways to influence that shift isn't with supplements or medications, it's with your breath. Here's what the research shows: slow, intentional breathing patterns directly affect the vagus nerve, a key pathway that connects the brain to the body. When you exhale slowly, you activate vagal tone, which reduces heart rate, lowers blood pressure, and calms the amygdala, the brain's fear center. One tool that's been studied at Stanford and other research centers is physiological sighing. This involves taking a deep inhale, followed by a second, smaller top-up inhale, and then a long, slow exhale. Just 1 to 3 rounds can significantly reduce stress and lower carbon dioxide levels, making it easier for the nervous system to settle. People often report feeling their body drop into calm after just a few minutes. Another powerful practice is the 4-7-8 technique, popularized by Dr. Andrew Weil, but rooted in ancient pranayama breathing. It goes like this: inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8. The long exhale is critical. It tilts the balance toward parasympathetic activation. Studies have found that this kind of paced breathing lowers cortisol and can help people fall asleep faster. Have you ever noticed how your breathing changes naturally as you drift off? It becomes slower, shallower, more rhythmic. By deliberately adopting that breathing pattern while you're still awake, you send a signal to the brain: it's safe, it's time to rest. Here's a simple bedtime protocol you can try tonight. Lie down or sit comfortably in bed. Take 1 to 3 rounds of physiological sighs. Big inhale, small top-up inhale, long exhale. Transition into a slower breathing rhythm, like 4-7-8, or simply a 5-second inhale followed by a 5 to 6-second exhale. Continue for 2 to 5 minutes, or until you feel your body naturally softening. Pairing this with your wind-down ritual creates a powerful 1-2 punch. You quiet the mind and signal safety to the body. The empowering part is that breathwork is always available. You don't need equipment, supplements, or the perfect environment. Wherever you are, you can use your breath to shift state, and over time your brain begins to associate these breathing patterns with sleep, making the transition even smoother. If insights like this are resonating with you, consider subscribing. Each week we explore science-backed tools you can use to optimize your brain, body, and daily life. And if you found breathing practices useful, let me know in the comments. Your experience may help someone else struggling with the same challenge. So remember, light sets the clock, temperature flips the switch, nutrition sets the stage. Rituals quiet the mind, but the breath is the lever you can pull at any moment. With just a few minutes of intentional breathing, you give your nervous system the permission it needs to let go and let sleep take over. If there's one theme that runs through every piece of sleep science, it's this: your brain and body thrive on rhythm. We sometimes imagine sleep as something mysterious that either happens or doesn't. But in reality, sleep is a highly trainable behavior, and one of the strongest training signals is consistency. Here's what the research shows. The human circadian system is like a finely tuned orchestra. Light, temperature, hormones, digestion, and even mood follow a roughly 24-hour cycle. When you go to bed and wake up at wildly different times each day, it's like asking that orchestra to play without a conductor. Everything falls out of sync. But when you keep a consistent schedule, the rhythms align, hormones are released at the right times, body temperature shifts predictably, and sleep pressure builds naturally. One large study published in Sleep found that people with irregular sleep schedules, even if they averaged the same total hours, had worse mood, lower academic performance, and reduced cardiovascular health compared to those with consistent schedules. In other words, when you sleep is just as important as how much. Have you noticed how much harder it is to fall asleep after staying up late on the weekend, even if you sleep in the next morning? That's often called social jet lag. Your internal clock doesn't care that it's Saturday, it's still running on cues. Shift those cues too much, and it feels like you've flown across time zones. Here's the empowering truth. Just as you can train your muscles in the gym, you can train your circadian rhythm with behavioral anchors. The two most important anchors are your wake time and your bedtime routine. Wake time is actually the stronger of the two. Even if you fall asleep late, waking up at your usual time and getting morning light exposure helps reset your rhythm far more effectively than sleeping in. So here's a practical framework. Choose a consistent wake time you can maintain, 7 days a week, even on weekends. Aim for within 30 minutes of the same time. Build a pre-sleep ritual, the wind-down practices we discussed earlier, that becomes a cue for your brain. Over time, your nervous system learns, when I do this sequence, sleep comes next. Keep your environment predictable. Dark, cool, quiet, the same sensory inputs each night become behavioral triggers for sleep. Think of it like training a dog. You don't just tell it once and expect perfect obedience. You repeat cues consistently until the association is automatic. Your brain works the same way. Give it consistent anchors, and it will begin to anticipate sleep at the right time instead of resisting it. One useful analogy is brushing your teeth. You don't brush only when you feel like it, you do it daily, because you know the long-term benefits compound. Sleep routines work the same way. Even if one night feels imperfect, the consistency is what builds the foundation for deeper rest over time. And here's the best part. Once your rhythm is locked in, you no longer have to work as hard. Falling asleep stops being a battle of willpower. It becomes automatic. Your body knows what to do, because you've trained it well. So as we close this section, remember, the single most powerful tool for long-term sleep health isn't a supplement, an app, or even the perfect mattress. It's consistency. Go to bed and wake up at regular times. Anchor your rhythm with light and rituals, and let your biology do the rest. Recapping the 6 levers, reinforcing the deeper why, and closing with a motivating call to action. So let's bring this full circle. Falling asleep faster and waking up restored is not a matter of luck, or genetics, or hoping that tonight will magically be different. It's a skill one rooted in biology, and it's a skill you can train. We've covered 6 levers that science consistently points to as the foundations of healthy restorative sleep. First, we looked at light, how your eyes and circadian clock respond to brightness, and how morning sunlight and dim evening light set the stage for melatonin to rise naturally. Then, temperature, the way your body's cooling process flips the internal sleep switch, and how simple tools like a warm shower, cool bedroom, or even light socks can accelerate that transition. We explored nutrition and timing, and how finishing meals a few hours before bed, limiting caffeine in the afternoon, and being mindful with alcohol can remove hidden barriers to deep rest. We looked at psychological wind-down rituals, because sleep doesn't happen in a mental vacuum. It requires a shift from problem-solving mode to rest mode, using tools like journaling, reading, or reflection. We also practiced breathing and nervous system regulation, where even a few minutes of paced breathing can calm the vagus nerve and signal the body that it's safe to let go. And finally, we ended with behavioral anchors and consistency, the idea that rhythm itself is medicine, and that going to bed and waking at predictable times trains your entire physiology for easeful sleep. Together, these aren't hacks. They're not tricks. They're the biology of how humans are designed to rest. When you align with these principles, falling asleep becomes less about trying and more about allowing. Why does this matter? Because sleep is not passive. It's the foundation upon which everything else rests. Your ability to focus, to regulate emotions, to build strong relationships, to resist cravings, to recover from stress. Even your long-term health, from heart function to immune resilience to mental sharpness, is deeply tied to how well you sleep. One night of poor rest can be managed, but night after night, week after week, compounds into a version of yourself that is less present, less capable, and less alive than you could be. The reverse is also true. Prioritize sleep, and everything else you care about, productivity, patience, energy, creativity, rises with it. And it doesn't take a perfect overhaul to start. It takes one tool, applied tonight. Maybe that's dimming your lights an hour earlier. Maybe it's journaling for 5 minutes to unload the day. Maybe it's trying 3 rounds of the physiological sigh as you lie down. Here's my challenge to you. Choose one of the 6 levers and put it into practice tonight. Don't overthink it, just try it. Notice what happens, and then build from there. And if this conversation has helped you, I'd love for you to join this community. Hit the like button if you found value here. Share your favorite sleep ritual in the comments. You never know who it might help. And if you want more science-backed tools like these each week, consider subscribing. Together, we're building a space where neuroscience meets practical tools for a better mind, body, and life. Because at the end of the day, the question is simple. Do you want to stumble into sleep, or do you want to design it? The tools are in your hands. Tonight, give yourself the gift of rest, and let tomorrow's version of you thank you for it.